While we're blowing out boxes, I would just ask why we even elect judges when most of us are playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo on it. So let's just ask why are they on the ballot, and maybe the Joint Committee wants to take up the question of election of judges.
I think that's a great point. I think it's a great point. Just to kind of cut in on that last comment, though, I share your concern, and we've all seen this very substantial drop-off that happens through the course of a ballot. All that being said, the biggest drop-off seems to be all the folks who just don't show up at city elections or these off-cycle local elections. Period. I mean, I know in one of the last special elections we had, it was an 8% turnout. So whatever drop-off ends up happening is certainly not as bad as that.
Yeah. And if I may, you mentioned special. I was going to say that I don't have data in front of me, but before we had the term limits, which have now thankfully been extended, we didn't have as frequent special elections. And that, I believe, when you hear people say, oh, there's so many elections, why am I going in August? What are they talking about? Most of that was based on the special elections due to the, if I may say, dominoes that have gone on. So it wasn't because there was April and May or March and May for City of LA.
And maybe consolidating will actually cause more special elections because a lot of the politicians have to leave their job to go for another position.
Actually, it won't, because those politicians will be running on cycle, so they have to make a choice.
That's right.
To make a choice whether they're going to run it.
Of course. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
So in some ways, it's sort of the cascade won't happen. If we want to think about special elections, I don't have to go through all the details, but on page 6 of our little report, we do have a couple of ideas for how to address the large number of special elections. And Senator Allen, you and I had a good conversation about some ideas. I think that there's a couple of options for addressing that. I think it's also something to tackle. People are just, Dean Logan has to run an election in a couple of months, a special election to fill a seat, for which there is only one candidate. But he's going to have to spend upwards of $1 million on that. And I guarantee you, because there's only one candidate, that we're probably going to have a couple thousand people. If we're lucky, maybe 5,000 people show up. That's kind of heartbreaking. And boy, that money could be used in different ways. So if we could just, if he could put half of that money towards outreach for a real election, I just think that let's solve those problems, not because necessarily it's going to solve the turnout problem, but because you can divert the resources to something that makes more sense.
Ms. Feng, given that you're a proponent of Propositions 1 and 2, and it will increase turnout, it stands to reason that it will likely increase the cost of campaigns from my perspective. Mm-hmm. You're very active on campaign finance.
Yes, sir.
Do you see a need to, in addition to potential ballot adjustments of where you put these elections, these new elections that would be on the presidential and gubernatorial ballots, see the need to adjust campaign finance limits or rules in order to accommodate that need? The community college, I think, still is without caps. And I think those are the only elections in our that will be affected by 1 and 2, other than maybe water board elections.
City council and school board.
Okay.
And the community college, because we automatically go with the city.
Right. And I mentioned water board because I think water boards are already in November. The West Basin is the one that's in my area, Central Basin and the like, and the Water Replenishment District. Any thoughts? I haven't heard that as much about.
You are speaking to issues that are straight to my heart. So 2 things. One is this question about whether it's going to increase costs for local candidates. Where the cost increase is when people are choosing to buy radio ads and television ads. And we know that for the most part, local candidates are not using that as a forum for communicating with voters. They're paying for mail, they're paying for slates, they're doing robocalls, they're doing direct door knocking, right? And a lot of those things actually benefit from economies of scale. When you're doing door knocking, if you've got a team that's going out there already to knock on doors for propositions at the state level or candidates at the state level, having them carry a city endorsement is actually easier, because they weren't going to put money into a city election, but they'll do it for the state. So that's what, slate's the same thing. More candidates actually is less money per ad. Okay, so that's one piece. But the other piece, though, is do we need to have more limits? And frankly, let me just put it out there, public financing for candidates, I think that would be tremendous. If we wanted to increase more voices and have more competition and support people who are truly grassroots, let's put it on the table that we should have public financing for candidates. Los Angeles City has a pretty good system. It's a 2-to-1 at the primary level and a 4-to-1 match at the general. They could go to 6-to-1, $6 of public funds matching every private dollar raised, and that would change the whole dynamics, because you'd bring out a different kind of candidate and you'd really kind of stimulate a lot of conversation. I think we should think about that at the state level. When it's all said and done, I would guess that a lot of electeds would rather spend their time talking about policies and talking directly to constituents than talking to donors and trying to get that money. That's a pain in the ass, and that's not what we, whoops, I said it. But that's not why you guys got into public policy. You got into it because you cared about ideas, not to spend your time, I mean, maybe some people like it, but you know, that's why I don't run. I love this. I love these issues, but I wouldn't want to spend all my time raising money. And so good people, a lot of good people who could get involved, shy away because of the money issue. So if that was something that you all wanted to tackle, let me talk to you afterwards.
Well, really, really appreciate your very, very thoughtful approach and the issues brought up. I've learned a lot from this. So thank you so much to the two of you. Thank you. All right, let's turn on now to kind of looking, expanding out a bit to really deep dive into this voter turnout in Los Angeles County issue. We've got some really strong panelists who we've brought in. Paul Mitchell, who's the Vice President of Political Data, Incorporated PDI, that most successful politicians know well from their campaign experience. Jessica Levinson, who's a professor of law at Loyola Law School, always provides very insightful quotes in most articles you read about these issues. And then Rafe Sonnenschein, who's here as well, who's been studying the details of Los Angeles political history for some time, written several books that I really enjoyed reading. He's the executive director of the Pat Brown Institute for Public Affairs at Cal State LA. Welcome, panelists. I think we'll hear from Mr. Mitchell first, followed by Ms. Levinson, and then Professor Sonnenschein.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today. We're having some handouts for the members, and there are a couple extras for staff. These were also emailed to the staff and can be distributed later as well. One of the handouts, this large tabloid size handout, is actually publicly available on the web. I printed out 2 versions of it. One version is a set of tables looking at LA County turnout, and it's highlighted at the top in LA County. And the second page is not LA County, to be able to compare LA to the rest of the state. Like I said, these data tables are not only available online, but you can go online and pull down for any county in the state, any legislative district in the state, and a number of larger cities. This is a valuable resource that we just put online for free for anybody to look at, utilizing the data that we have within PDI. The second set is a presentation that's modified from a presentation that I did at UC Berkeley a couple weeks ago, and I'll reference some tables in that during my presentation. First off, Political Data is a bipartisan data company that works with campaigns and has been doing so since 1987. We manage a statewide voter file that's built from individual county voter files and updated throughout the year. Our updates are so extensive that in the 2014 cycle, in the last month before the election, the voter registration close, we actually did 700 updates within a 1-month period.